to the Phantom Zone.
Hello, and this week's first episode is Justice. It's the Justice League's first appearance. We're not going to count that other movie. Then, in Labyrinth, Clark wakes up in an asylum. Has it all been a dream? This is the SMALLVILLE Chronicles. Hello and welcome back. I am Luke Gonzalez. Joining me as always is Alan Mira.
It's never going to get better than these two episodes.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of the top, this is like the crescendo of the show, and then it just starts to slowly tumble down in quality in this midpoint, because especially once we lose Rosenbaum and Glover as main cast members, and all this, once we start losing main cast members and getting them replaced, it tumbles very quick. Except especially that last season is pretty terrible.
No, actually season 10 is great because John Glover comes back.
Well, yes, it's there's just a lot of goofiness, and the final, I feel like season 8 is when stuff gets insanely, when they just don't know what to do anymore, because they just can't, it's oh, he should be just Superman at this point, and they're just making excuses to not have him be in costume and flying, especially once they get Supergirl on in the show, which I do like her in the show. It's okay, why is he not in a costume and flying at this point? You should have just stopped, or finish stuff up a little bit sooner. But it is kind of crazy that we get in 2007 a straight up walking out full Justice League team, sans two of the big three, and then a replacement a legacy character as one of the other ones. And it would take to, one was the Batman v Superman was what, 2016 is the first time we get the big three live action together.
Yeah, so over 9 years later.
Yeah, not even the big three, just the big two.
Yeah.
And then it takes another year or two to get a bad Justice League movie.
Ironically, I was watching clips of it from that, and God, I hate that movie so much.
Man, just wait. Now that there's going to be I feel like we can't even call it a Snyder cut, since he obviously didn't have a cut of the film, that they're going back and filming stuff. But a added stuff and a re-edit.
Well, I don't know if you read the thing that he put, the interview with him, where he revealed that the Robin that died or that was killed by the Joker was Dick Grayson.
Why? One, who cares? That universe is dead for the most part.
Yeah,
the Flash movie's dead. There's Wonder Woman will eventually come out. That's already filmed. Aquaman will happen, and Shazam will happen because those movies did well. And then we have a new Batman. So why even bother talking about it? But yeah, I don't know. This episode though is pretty good. I like what they do. We do have to deal with the goofy costumes, and by that I mean nobody gets a costume besides Green Arrow. Everybody else is in neoprene or a hoodie, except Clark's in his red Carhartt.
Bart has this is the limit we're drawing, and anything that gets close to this will be a DeviantArt version of the outfit. Yeah,
it's he's wearing a hoodie, but
there's a lightning
bolt on it. Yeah, it's he bought a costume sweatshirt at GameStop or Hot Topic or something.
Was Hot Topic a thing at this point?
Yeah, it was already a thing. This is when Hot Topic was it was so dark in the store that you could barely see because it was more gothy. But they still had comic book nerdy shit in there. Just no Funko Pop figures. It was much more Marilyn Manson, 9 Inch Nails than My Chemical Romance that it is kind of now. But yeah, so we can jump into this first episode. It's called Justice because it's our Justice League episode. I think we get 2 more or 3 more in the series. I think it's 2 because I remember there's a Black Canary one when she shows up.
Yeah, she shows up, and I think the next season or season 8.
Mm-hmm. So we open up. Chloe's on the phone with Clark. Clark's in South America trying to hunt down some zoners. She's like, there's a situation in Kansas that needs your attention too. And they hang up. Chloe meets Dr. Caselli, who works at Bell Rev. This guy's a character actor that's been in like a ton of stuff. And she's like, oh, there's patients with special abilities who got transferred out by LexCorp, and LexCorp's involved. And she's like, oh, level 33.1. And the doctor pulls a gun on her. Before he shoots, somebody super speeds and knocks him out. Clark appears, and he says, like, yeah, he was already down when I got here. And he's like, oh, someone else has been around that can move as fast as me. There's only one person I know. I can't catch him, though, until the person stops. And it's Bart Allen, who jokes that he's still too slow. Which, I do like the play that it's Bart, but, like, it's still weird that it's Bart. And I still don't get why.
Well,
like, it's
Barry was dead. Is still dead at this point.
You know, why not make it Wally then? It's weird to go with like the second legacy character. I guess because like the Allen was more well known. I also think it would have been funnier if it was Wally, since Wally's the version that's in the cartoon that's voiced by Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I think this is because like I'm not sure. I think Bart was the main. Like he had taken up the Flash mantle at this point in the comics.
Because he's Flash for like
not that long. He's
not that long.
Because in Infinite Crisis, Wally is sent to the future, and the Rogues end up killing Bart.
Yeah. What's his bad version? His Reverse Flash.
Oh, Inertia.
Oh my god, he's a fucking terrible character. Because that's like the whole plot behind what's going on with the Rogues in Final Crisis. Because I just read that now. Because that's like the whole thing of oh my god, Pied Piper and is it Trickster are handcuffed together? I think. Yeah, I think it's the two of them. And it's like the whole thing of how they're like, nobody wanted any of this shit. And then Inertia gets turned into like a living statue, and they just put him in the Flash Museum. It's so weird. But yeah, I guess that makes sense if it's just like weird in hindsight to make it like Bart. Because it's like, I don't know. It's just weird. So Clark and Chloe go to the loft, and they're talking about the doctor. And then Bart shows up, who flirts with Chloe. And she's like, oh, I remember meeting you 2 years ago. And Chloe leaves, and Clark's like, why are you in town? And Bart is like, since meeting you, I cleaned up my act. I don't steal anymore. And Clark's like, yeah, okay. He's like, I'm a courier, and I only came to Smallville to see you. And he's like, oh, why don't we go to Mexico and get some lunch and catch up? Which I do like the idea of like, oh yeah, Bart like is kind of confronting Clark with like, yeah, you can just do stuff because you can move so fast. And it's like, yeah. And then we get Lois and Oliver. They're making out, then the phone rings. And he tells the caller he'll be there in 5 minutes. Lois is upset. It's like, oh, you're always running off and interrupting. And Oliver is like, oh, why don't we go to Monte Carlo and like a romantic getaway? That way, like nothing will interrupt us. Foreshadowing for later in the episode. Lionel meets Lex and says that like another LuthorCorp facility's been hit. Oh, I wonder if that's connected to Oliver's phone call. Says that there are 6 facilities have been hit. They've all been attached or have something to do with 33.1. Lex isn't worried until Lionel shows the security camera of a red blur. And Lex says that whoever's responsible can move very fast. And he tends to catch them and make them a test subject, which I believe, like at this point, Lex believes it's Clark, I think.
Yeah.
It's like very heavily implied. So they leave. Bart zooms in, downloads a bunch of stuff from Lex's laptop, calls his contact to drop off the data, and no surprise, he's meeting the Green Arrow. Clark meets Lionel Metropolis, and he's like, you're helping the doctor. You help the doctor get out of jail. And Lionel's like, I'm not involved. And he shows Clark a photograph, and it's like, oh, yeah, and you're going to say that you're not involved? And this is like, you should be more careful. And Clark's like, yeah, that's not me in the photograph. But, like, doesn't tell him who it is. Clark goes home, and Bart's eating anything Martha puts in front of him. And he confronts Bart about stealing. Bart's like, I can't tell you what's going on. It's complicated. And he runs away. Chloe's helping Lois pack for her trip. They're interrupted by Clark, and Lois, leaves. And Chloe's like, I know Oliver's the Green Arrow. And Clark's like, yeah, and Bart can run super fast. Bart is in some kind of trouble. He's like, can you track him? They look up his records and reveal obviously that Bart is working with Oliver. And Bart's next assignment is to break into a facility. And when he gets there, he's shocked. I think the floor shocks him, right?
No,
And
it's the USB port that shocks him.
Oh, it's the floor with the other thing. That's how they keep him. He's knocked out. Lex arrives with the guards, and they wake him up, and he's in the chamber. And Lex is like questioning him, and Bart won't tell him who he's working for. So they activate it, and basically it's like Speed, the movie, but so basically Bart stops moving, the floor will electrocute him to death. So Bart's basically has to run at super speed to keep from getting shocked to death, but he can only keep this up for so long. Clark goes to Oliver and asks about Bart, and like, you're just using him for like your vendetta against Lex. And Oliver is basically like, yeah, well, I'm sorry, I'm being proactive when you're just waiting for trouble to like fall in your lap. And Bart's helping me along with others because Lex is building a super powered like meteor freak army in 33.1, and he's gonna like, this is basically like the Ultimates, like the comic book idea of using metahumans as like the new like super weapon, and Lex is building like this metahuman army as like a nuclear stockpile. So Clark's like, oh shit, like I didn't know all this, so okay, what's up? And Oliver's like, he's like, yeah, and Bart's actually been captured, but my team's already working on it. And Clark's like, wait, team? And we get Vic Stone and Arthur Curry, which Arthur is always wearing orange, which I don't mind. And then Vic is, if Bart is in a bad costume, I don't even know how to describe what Victor. He's in like slacks with a belt and like a silver neoprene hoodie vest with like Under Armour long sleeve shirt underneath. It's such a wonky design, and kind of shows the lack of funding that they have for like these costumes, which is funny because I love how Doom Patrol gets away with it in their show, which has like a very low budget, like not a very low budget, but like a lower budget, and like they do such a good job of like working with Cyborg. So Oliver tracks Bart, and Clark has been like, how long have you been working with him? And Victor's like, yeah, well, me and my girlfriend tried to make it work, but she actually left me, which kind of reinforces Clark's decision to have not told Lana. And Oliver found me living on the streets and gave me a reason to go on. So Arthur says he got caught trying to sink a whaler, and Oliver got him out of trouble, so he's owed Oliver, and they've been working together ever since because everything seems to be connected to Luthor Corp. So they try to locate Bart, and they narrow it down to 100 facilities. Clark is like, oh, why don't we get Chloe in this because she knows computers? Which is still like, they take so long to, because they don't even say her thing with the computers for like another 2 seasons, I think, right?
Yeah.
Which is insane. They should have just revealed it way earlier on. I think they just like didn't think about it until then. They're like, oh, we can just use this to explain how Chloe's a world-class hacker in high school through college. So Chloe reveals through tech magic that $20 million worth of equipment to measure high velocity particles was transferred to this facility or the Ridge facility. Like, oh, that's obviously the place. We're going to go rescue Bart. And I'll just go alone, and because I can get there faster than anybody else. He breaks in, and there's like a restricted door. But everything in the laboratory is refined with meteor rocks, and Clark's incapacitated. Chloe goes to the tower and gives Oliver the lead, which they basically put up this whole thing, and there's several rooms lined with lead, and she's like, they're probably working with meteor rocks, so Clark is in trouble. So they gear up and go to rescue the 2 guys. And this is the reveal of Chloe being referred to as Watchtower, which I think is a great idea for the show. Yeah,
and she, I think from season 7 or 8 onwards, that's her code name.
Mm-hmm. Which is basically she is the blueprint for everything, like the person behind the computer and all the CW stuff.
Cisco, like, Felicity.
Yeah, well, Felicity, like, straight up, because she's Overwatch.
Yeah.
Which they are taking. She basically becomes Oracle for the most part, like that concept of what Oracle was at this time in the comics. And this is where we get their official code names of Green Arrow, Cyborg, and Aquaman. So they infiltrate the facility. Clark's name is Boy Scout, which I like as well. And Bart is Impulse, which was his comic book pre-becoming the Flash name. And so, yeah, Green Arrow rescues Clark, then directs Clark to find Impulse, and then Oliver is going to do another thing. So Clark, like, basically, like, wrecks the thing to get Bart out, and Oliver locates Lex and tells him, you got 10 minutes to leave and clear out your employees before the building blows up. And they're like, oh, everything is confirmed gone, because Chloe can do that. And this is where we get, like, their Expendables level, like, walkout on, like, green screen with, like, a giant explosion behind them, that you'll see in, like, everything if you look up, like, Justice League in the show. And
I think it actually ends up in, like, in future season open, like, intros.
Oh, it for sure is. I think it's like the one of the closing images.
Yeah.
So now we get to pay off the stuff with Oliver and Lois. So she arrives at Queen Tower, but Oliver cancels her trip because he has a business meeting. And she's like, can't you postpone it? And he's like, no. And she's like, don't expect me to wait for you. And he's like, I've been jumping from city to city my whole life. I've never regretted leaving anyone behind, but like, I will with you, but like, I can't. Like, either you can be like it's kind of like, this is how I live. If you can't deal with it, like, you can't deal with it. As he's leaving Metropolis for a long time, and Lois kisses him goodbye and cries and leaves. And this is how we get them breaking up. Which it's kind of weird tracking in the future how, like, these couples end up and how they're friends, where like Clark is with Lois, who dated Oliver for, like, I would say in, like, TV show time, like, at least like 6 to 8 months, right?
Yeah.
Like, they had a pretty serious relationship. And then Oliver gets with Chloe, who basically was in love with Clark for her entire, like, teenage to young adult life. But I guess they didn't have like a romantic relationship, so it's a little different. It's just like a weird, in hindsight, how that ends up. So we get Lionel is like freaking out on Lex because they lost another facility. And Lex is like, you don't understand, like, I'm fighting for freedom and democracy. Like, these guys are like, the Green Arrow and his team are terrorists, and he's been recruiting people with abilities as well. Lionel's like, bullshit, like, I don't believe you. And Lex is like, and basically like, oh, and several of the guards said that they saw someone that matches Clark Kent's description. And Lionel's like, no, like, Clark could not have been involved because I was at dinner with them last night. At the Kent's house at the time of the explosion. So this is like an interesting where we see like Lionel is kind of playing the fence, but he still protects Clark. And we don't really know if it's because of the Jor-El stuff or if it's because of Martha. So then we get our team meeting up at the barn, which is a weird place for them to meet up. And Oliver is basically says that like Lex is now going outside of the US and he's setting up laboratories all across the globe. And it's like, Clark, why don't you join us? You're like the heaviest of all heavy hitters. We could really use you. And Clark's like, I will, but like, I have my own mess I have to clean up first. And, talk about the zoners. And Oliver's like, okay, well, let me know when you're ready. And tells his team, come on, boys, let's go save the world. I do like this episode a lot. It is super fun.
Do you remember what when they were tracking? I think it was Bart, and they were bringing up the companies owned by Queen Industries.
Oh no, I did not pay attention.
Okay, so one of them it was a satellite company called JL International.
Oh, that was owned by Lex?
No, Oliver.
Okay, well that's cool because that's like the Booster Gold.
The Booster Gold, Guy Gardner, Captain Marvel,
Ice, right?
Fire and Ice, Blue Beetle.
Yeah, like all the goofy characters in that bad TV movie we saw. I did not know this, so just reading like this was kind of like a mini pilot to adapt like a spin-off of this team, and it just never made it past like early development.
Oh man, that would have been I would have watched that.
I bet it would have been too expensive.
Yeah.
I guarantee that was the problem. Because like if you think about the shows now, like they have like all the shows have a team, but besides Arrow, like if you look at like the Flash, like how often are the other powered team members actually going out and doing stuff? It's like one person maybe for 3 seconds an episode besides the Flash. And like they're never all like they save like them all going out for like a season finale type of situation. And like I feel like it makes sense. Like they tried to do that Aquaman thing, it did not work. And they work Green Arrow into the show, and then they're doing this, and like I just don't think it would have been cost effective. And it would take what it took the CW like 4 shows. Like they had to get up to 4 independent shows running for like at least a full season each to do like a giant crossover of like a super team.
Wait, well, yeah, because
Yeah, it was
Crisis on Earth X, they had Supergirl, Legends, Flash, and Arrow.
Yeah, well, even the one before that with the aliens was Arrow, Flash, Supergirl. I think that was it, right? It's just the 3 of them.
Yeah,
and that's like the first one because it was like just the Flash and Arrow, just Flash and Supergirl. Oh, they did an Arrow and Arrow, Flash, and Legends crossover for the Legends season 1 finale.
No, I think you're thinking of the
No, the season 1 finale of Legends. Remember, like that's when Oliver learns that he has a kid. All that takes place in Legends, because Cisco is dating Hawkgirl, sort of, and
yeah, that was setting up Legends.
Was that setting up? I thought that was in Legends.
Yeah, because it was the one that introduced Hawkman and Vandal Savage.
Oh, I see. I thought. Oh, okay, maybe I'm misremembering. I thought that was actually a Legends episode, but no, maybe you're right. When they're at that house,
yeah, and Barry has to
run back in time.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that's even like basically that's like a backdoor pilot. So yeah, it took like a while for them to get like a big team up episode. So yeah, this is a fun episode. I definitely would like. It doesn't have as much like hijinks with all of the power. Like I feel like Aquaman doesn't get to do much. I feel like Cyborg gets to do way more because we actually get to see him like kind of hack stuff a little bit. But like Aquaman is just kind of like around.
Yeah.
But it is a fun episode, and it's like there's a lot that happens in it. Like it's a very full episode, which is I think usually good. Like we kind of track like all of our main characters. We see like, oh, this is Chloe's introduction, which I feel like, oh, when it's explained later on that like, because I think it's like later on in the season when she's like, oh, I've been working with Oliver this entire time since that moment. And it kind of sets up as like them growing closer.
Just some notes for the episode. Last appearance of Justin Harley for the season. And the next one I didn't even get to yet with Superman season 11 or Smallville season 11. Apparently Brian Q. Miller retconned the group at like instead of being the Justice League, they were the Watchtower Network. I kind of get that. I do want to read that comic. That's there's I think 129 issues on DC Universe app. And that's just of season 11. I think there's like 3 or 4 other series that take place in Smallville that are like short, like one-off things. But yeah, this is pretty cool. Like, I would say this is like a solid A episode. Cannot agree with you more on that. Yeah, which is cool because we actually get a pair of like really good episodes, like we were saying. So like our second episode, Labyrinth, is an awesome idea. And it's been used a lot. I think it's been used mostly in comics. I don't think we've seen this really done again in any of our television superhero stuff. Like we got Oliver in prison and we got Barry in prison for like a hot second. But we haven't like this concept. Like what was it? One of the Black Label books, Last Night on Earth, the Batman book, kind of does like a full issue of this, which those are like extra long issues of basically like, oh, here's your bat suit, and it's like a straight jacket that like he turned into bat wings, and it's really interesting. But this episode is I see them coming back from their winter break, and they're coming back hard. So Huck does his farm chores while he's waiting for Chloe, and Shelby starts barking. He goes to check on the dog, and he gets like a blast of pressure that sends him. He falls down like from the loft area, and he wakes up and he's in a mental hospital. Is this supposed to be Belle Rev? No, it's just some other, but we're using that set. Yeah. And he's wearing scrubs and he's like super confused. He's like, how did I get here?
and the other patients are mocking him and like, oh, did you get attacked by one of those crypto freaks again? And he gets upset, and the guards come over and they carry him away, and he tries to super speed away, but he can't. And then he's like confused because the guards are overpowering him, and he gets put into like a small room. Once he calms down, Dr. Hudson comes in, which is an interesting character. And he's been in a bunch of goofy stuff. He was in Stargate SG-1.
Hey, don't call that goofy.
Yeah.
He played Merlin.
So he's been in a ton of stuff. So Clark's like, am I in 33.1? He thinks that he's captured by Lex. And Dr. Hudson tells him, in fact, that like, you've had suffering from paranoid schizophrenia for the last 5 years. And you've created this entire fantasy where you're like this alien with superpowers. It was during your freshman week of high school. This is where this started, and that you've been getting worse. But we've been trying to figure out a treatment that would cure you, and we hope to use it soon. And Clark tells him that this is Lex and he's not buying it. And the doctor's like, you've been institutionalized in Fairview Psychiatric Hospital for the last 5 years. And all of this secret identity and alien lineage is all a delusion. So Clark goes to the common room, and he's standing in line with medication. And one of the patients whispers that he believes him and starts addressing him as Kal-El. And he says that he is from Mars. And this is, it's what's his name, right? That plays him? That plays, or I'm mixing stuff up here.
Who?
It's Phil Morris, right?
Who plays Cyborg or Asylum Stone on Doom Patrol?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's basically like, yeah, I'm from Mars. Like, I know like what's happening. He basically tells him, don't trust anyone. The orderlies come from behind and tase him. Clark sees a janitor enter a broom closet and follows him. He knocks him out and steals his uniform. He escapes the side door. Then Clark goes to his barn, and he finds Lana in the loft. It's furnished with all of Lana's things. And she dresses up, and she's delighted to see him and runs into his arms. And Clark is like, why are you here? She's like, that she and Nell bought the farm after your dad died, and she's been living there waiting for him. And Clark is super confused. Says they have been dating since they were freshmen. And Clark asks about Whitney, and she's like, you're the only person I've ever loved. And that she thinks Dr. Hudson Clark took his treatment and was released, and Clark admits that he escaped. It says Lex put him there, and she doesn't care if they're doesn't care. And she's like, she's like, I don't even know Lex. And Clark's like, you're in on it too. Wants to know where his mom is. And Lana says she's at the Luther mansion, and Clark leaves immediately, where she finds Martha in the library and says everyone's been looking for him. And Clark's shocked that his mom allowed him to be there, and she tells him to calm down. And she basically says that like, after your dad died, she and Lionel actually got married, and you should take the treatment. And she hits the alarm, and Clark runs away. The guards get him, and they capture him. Chloe drives up, and Clark climbs into the car with her. And she's like, believe that everything is different, and tells him that she's been hiding me because she knows the truth about him. Clark says he wants to confront Lex, but Chloe doesn't agree. And Clark's like, can I borrow your car? Clark goes to the office and accuses Lex to take his powers. Lex is angry, frustrated at Clark, and reveals that he lost both legs after the car accident. And that Clark jumped in front of his car, and Lex had to swerve from hitting him and wrapped his car around a guardrail, which lost his legs. And that he's furious that Clark won't come out of this fantasy. And he's like, I wish I just ran you over. This is all like so fucking cool that like this like the way they do this. And
yeah, they're depicting it. It's a good episode to watch if you're looking at Clark as the bad guy.
Yeah, it's like a really cool like Elseworlds kind of a thing.
Yeah, and did they ever throughout the episode I kept wondering what it is that's set, like, because I know the whole paranoid schizophrenia stuff, but do you think they could have been like Jonathan dying early? That
I think the idea is, yeah, like his delusions started from like what you would say like episode 1, but like Jonathan dying like is no, because they said he's been there for 5 years. So like Jonathan died while he was there. So I'm guessing that like it's from that moment with Lex that they institute in this like version. because that would, like, if somebody jumps in front of a car, that's pretty good reason to institutionalize someone. But this, like, Lex flipping out on him, like, is the first time Clark's like kind of gives any real pushback. And so he goes to the town, and it's just an abandoned movie theater. And Lana shows up, and Clark's like, "Is the story true?" And Lana says, "As long as we're together, we can get through anything." And basically, like, we've been together since kindergarten, and shows him a plastic ring. And it's like, "You gave it to me when they were 10. Clark gives it back and runs to the apartment to find Chloe. And Chloe's like, "You aren't crazy." And they have to hide out until you get your powers back. Clark is going to leave, but Lana shows up and tells Clark that Chloe also escaped an institution a few months earlier. And Lana's like, "Please come back with me." And he appears to be convinced. Like, he's basically like, "Okay, like, yeah." And Chloe runs past him, and Clark begs her to stay. But she's like, "They'll kill me when they catch me." Just then, like, the two guards come to get them. Chloe pulls out a handgun, and they shoot her. And she dies in Clark's arms. And she's saying, like, that she's not crazy, which is also kind of a tie-in to, like, when she learned that her mom was institutionalized.
Yeah.
So this is another, like, really cool tie-in that they do with her. And, you know, Clark's upset over Chloe's death, and basically has the Lana and the guards taken back. And Hudson tells him that he'll be fine after the treatment. Clark insists he's not going to go through with it, but goes to show Clark that all the circumstances, like in his life, all the stuff with the Kryptonian have been taken. It's very usual suspects kind of thing. He's like, "Here's a piece of the meteor rock," and Clark jumps back, but like nothing happens to him. And it's like, yeah, it's harmless. It's just like a goofy rock. And this is when like Clark kind of like calms down, and he's like, Chloe's really dead, and like is basically he feels defeated. And so Clark finds the guy again from the medication line in a restraint room, who tells him he has to fight, and Clark is like kind of like doesn't care, and he's like, "Don't you like understand? Dr. Hudson is one of the Phantom Zoners. He's trying to gain control of your body. This is all in your mind. Unless you fight back, he's going to take over. I'm also in your mind. I'm trying to help you, but you need to regain consciousness. You have to kill Dr. Hudson. Yeah, I have to trust him. You have to trust yourself and trust me." And then the orderlies come in, and this is like a cool, like, where they terrorize the guy with a lighter, which
is Martian Manhunter's or John Jones' his
weakness.
Yeah,
is fire. So Clark's taken to the treatment room where Lana is waiting, and Clark is like trying to resist. And Lana is like, doesn't know why Clark is so. She's like, she doesn't know why Clark is so eager to return to a reality in which they aren't even together, and he's an alien who's caused like so much pain to them. And she's like, if you take the treatment and you become normal, we can be together for the rest of our lives. Which is kind of an interesting statement, especially like given post-crisis like version of this.
Yeah.
So they strap Clark to the table, and Dr. Hudson has a drill. So I guess the idea is they're going to lobotomize him.
Yeah.
And just as it's coming towards Clark's head, he starts hearing like the barking and growling noises with his super hearing, and realizes it's Shelby and that he's still in the barn. And so he breaks free and he strangles Dr. Hudson, which is like really dark for this show. And he wakes up, and the other patient's standing over him holding a crystal, and he captures the Phantom. And Chloe arrives, and Clark watches as there's a streak of red flies through the air, which is cool.
Well, we also get to see his eyes go red.
Mm-hmm. They do a lot of cool stuff with him without blowing too much money on him.
Because, like, I'm surprised. Like, did Supergirl have a good budget, like, for like his? I mean,
well, they do an interesting thing that works really well for the show. So what they do is they film the whole thing with the actor in costume, and he just has the dots on his head. So all they have to CGI in is the his head.
That is actually a good, like, really brilliant way of handling it.
Yeah, the rest of it is just him. Because if you look at stuff like, and I guess at times like the cape, depending on like the scene, but like it's basically just him running around in the suit, which is why in the season that just ended, post crisis, he actually has like a new outfit and he's like wearing it all the time. And they're like, oh, what's with the new thing? And basically it's not like it was like a full bodysuit before, but now he's wearing more like military, like earthly military gear, but he still has like the chest piece, and it looks like kind of more of like a more cost effective way to do it. And he's like, yeah, it's like a new look for a new time, and they're kind of, I actually really like what they're doing with him in that show because they're making him more like a private investigator on the side, like working for like doing cases for like aliens. But it is crazy still, like they pulled this character into the show, and I think it's only because of the cartoon and how popular that character was in there.
And just like the cartoon, making Martian Manhunter a household name, this made the African American version of John Jones
like permanently canonical.
Yeah.
I feel like it's never going back because yeah, the Supergirl version is as well, and I think he has been like the last like times I've read the comics, like his comic book that Martian Manhunter comic book, he was also African American.
Yeah, same as the series he had, the solo series he had prior to Rebirth.
Mm-hmm. And surprising, we have not gotten any sort of. I think it works so well, like TV wise, like besides his look, like he doesn't need a movie. He works so well as a supporting character. So to finish this up, so he wakes up. So yeah, Martian Manhunter flies away, and Chloe shows up and says that basically you were out for a second, and he's like trying to explain to Chloe like how he lived and
like
everything he gave up.
He says it felt like a lifetime in there.
Yeah, and he's like, even though she's with Lex, I must still be in love with her for that stuff to like be in there. And she asks what role she was, and he kind of like doesn't want to tell her. So he just tells her like, you were like my only true friend in there. And doesn't tell her that she was a crazy person. And then Clark runs into Lana at the Talon, and she's like, oh, you have something on your mind. And he tells her, I had a dream that we were engaged when they were 10, and Lana like kind of smirks at it and like is amused. And then Lex shows up, and Clark says, is like, it's good to see him out and about. And Lex says he appreciates the civility, and the two of them leave together. And Lana kind of looks back with like emotions about Clark. Like you can tell that she's like has some feelings there still for Clark, which sets up stuff for the rest of the season. And this is, I actually want to say like, I think this is a better episode than the last episode. This is like a straight A+ for me. It's the first time we get to see Phil Morris as the Martian Manhunter, like actually playing the character, I believe, who's been in like a million things.
He was Jackie Childs on Seinfeld.
Oh man, I'm trying to remember what's the other big thing like I know him from. Yeah, he's in Fresh Prince, in Babylon 5, and Star Trek. It's a big thing I know him from. Said Smallville. Oh, he was in the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Weird. I don't remember what character was he.
Miles Dyson.
Okay, yeah, that makes
so. Which is funny. He's like, so he. Wow, this is actually like weird connection. So he plays Miles Dyson and the Martian Manhunter in this, and Silas Stone in Doom Patrol. While, oh my god, I can't remember his name. Who played Miles Dyson was also in Smallville. Plays Silas Stone in Justice League.
Man.
It's like those two guys are just like taking each other's roles, I guess. And he does like a ton of voiceover work. I'm looking through like he does like he's voiced Vandal Savage. He did Kim Possible voices, Danny Phantom, American Dragon, Jake Long, Dead Space. Oh, he did voices for the Boondocks, Ultimate Spider-Man. He was Saint Walker in the Green Lantern animated series, and Umbatu in the Black Panther animated series. He was Jonah Hex in Batman the Brave and the Bold. Man, he's done a bunch of stuff. Oh, he plays James Olsen in Superman Red Sun, which I have not watched yet. And he did a voice for the newest Spider-Man game. He was Dr. Morgan Michaels. Yeah, he's been in everything for forever. Oh, man. Oh, Joel Morton. That's who it is, the other actor. That is so weird that they both have played two of the only live-action versions of a character. Silas Stone and
Miles Dyson.
Miles Dyson. So random. But yeah, this is a fantastic episode. This might be my favorite one. And it's so weird because it's like not a Smallville episode in so many ways.
Yeah, it's more of a psychological profile of like a different take on the Superman mythos.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's very X-Files.
Yeah.
It was just funny. Like, apparently there was a Buffy episode that was very similar to this, which makes sense. Because they're like, I feel like Buffy did everything before everything because it ran for so long. So yeah, this is oh yeah, I forgot that we didn't see it. Like, we didn't talk about it. So Oliver is one of the security guards, Raya is one nurse, Milton finds a doctor, Arthur Curry and Vic Stone are other patients, Jor-El's name is on the hand soap, Phantom Zone and Fortress of Solitude are titles of a book, and 331 is the capacity for the ward that Clark is in. Again, it's like very Usual Suspects, but in reverse, I guess. It's such a good episode. And the next one is a pretty bad episode, Crimson, because that is a red kryptonite, Clark and Lois, and gross in so many ways.
Yeah, it's like the clip I chose to give like a little preview for the episode is
they kind of like date rape each other.
Yeah, the clip I chose was them crashing a certain event in the next episode.
Did I have everyone's attention? I just wanted to thank you all for joining us to celebrate. Over the years, I'm sure some of you have placed a few bets on whether I'd settle down, but this couldn't be further from. I'd like to toast my beautiful fiancée for making me happier than I thought I could ever be.
Looks like we missed dinner.
Clark, what are you doing here?
Come on, Lex, you didn't think I was going to miss this, did you? And look, my own mother would rather raise a glass with the enemy than stand by her own son.
Clark, you're not your son.
You're more Luther than a Kent these days anyway. Your dad's been, what, dead a year? But who can blame you for joining the race with Lana? To see who's going to add the Luther monogram to their name for?
Lex, he's obviously on something and he wants us to. Please don't.
Chloe, I can't say that I'm surprised that you're celebrating here. After all, once Lana's off the market, all those years of unrequited pining may actually pay off. I can't say I haven't thought about it. And you. You know, you gotta hand it to you. If you were going to rebound, why not choose the one person that I hated the most? But I mean, come on, Lana, the joke's over by now, isn't it?
Clark, I think you've done enough damage. Why don't you leave?
I'm not done yet! Besides, Lex, I haven't given you my gift yet. Congratulations on sealing the deal. To baby Luther, the real reason that Lana's married you.
How dare you?
Come on, Lana, no one else in this room is going to save it from Lex, and I will.
I don't think so. Lana is your past. I'm your future.
This is the present. You're okay.
Clark?
All right, come on.
What are you still doing out here?
Well, I'm still doing my chores.
Well, you usually finish those in about 2 minutes. How is it that I drove to Metropolis, attended the Children's Foundation dinner, and made it back before you finished?
I'm doing them the normal way. Ever since I landed on the paparazzi's list of ex-boyfriends down, I feel like someone's looking over my shoulder, like I'm being watched. I spent so much time trying to stay out of the spotlight that pushing Lana into Lex's life put me right in the middle of it.
Well, it's gotta be a lot warmer in that spotlight than it is outside. I'm gonna go inside and make some hot cocoa to thaw out the two of us who can actually feel how cold it is. Thank you, Mrs. Kent.
Chloe, you look half frozen.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be next to a fire somewhere, warming up next to Jimmy?
I'm on a milk commitment for Lana. At least, that's what I'm letting her believe. She is hiding out at my apartment.
From what?
Somebody who has taken to breaking, entering, and making obligatory creepy phone calls.
What's Lex doing about it?
She has some very compelling reasons for keeping him out of the picture.
All right. I'll go back with you. We can figure out a way.
Clark, she's fine. She's safe. She's got Lex's security guards there. Believe me. No one's gonna go near her without them knowing about it.
There's gotta be something I can do.
There is. I traced the text message to a low-life shutterbug named Louis Esposito. Now, there's no permanent address, but Jimmy really knows that world, so can you call him and ask him about it?
Call Jimmy? Yeah. Why don't you call him yourself?
I can't. We sort of broke up.
Does this have anything to do with me and keeping my secret?
No. And yes.
Can't let this happen, Chloe. My lies have already pushed Lana away, and
She's
now...
a lot closer than you think, Clark. This is a picture that creep sent Lana on her cell phone. Anything look familiar?
It's my dad's chisel. Did she see Lex stab me?
She doesn't know what she saw. But Clark, she's been orbiting your secret for years, and I think she may finally be coming in for a landing.
Yeah, and then the the episode after that is like a thriller episode with Lana, which is like, I think it's like them like doing genre episodes kind of like this, and not knowing what to do with everything. Oh yeah, and then the week after, there's like one other good episode. Oh, Michael Rosenbaum directed one coming up.
Oh,
Freak, which is one of the ones I was saying is like not a bad episode. That's with like the blind kid who can see people who are metas, who are meteor freaks. And then it's the wedding. And then after the wedding, we get into like the real goofy ass shit with like the straight up WWE episode.
oh yeah, with the one who passed away.
Yeah, and Kane, Mayor.
Yeah,
but the episode after that's a good one because we got Chloe's mom. Yeah, there are some. The end of the season gets a couple strong episodes. Oh, I'm just clicking through, and there's like I just remembered a really bad one, which is the whole Jimmy doing a noir episode. I hate that episode.
Yeah, like a few years ago, I was re-binging the series, and when I was like drifting in and out of sleep during that episode.
It's like so cliche in like the worst ways possible.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the episode that was making me go back to sleep, just due to like I mean, Aaron Ashmore, like he tries.
Oh yeah, he does. Isn't he? I feel like he was just announced to be doing something recently, or was it his brother? I feel like one of them just announced that they were doing something like super nerdy soon. They know Sean is on the Rookie, and Aaron. Oh, because Aaron's in Lock and Key. I forgot about that. Which is, but yeah, we're meandering. So that's it for this week. I'll tell the people where they can find you and all your other awesome stuff.
Okay, so you can go to bg.tv for recent stuff like Josh Miller's Rage Quit piece on Timed Exclusive. We actually got in touch with someone who had like an early gameplay leak for the game Gods and Monsters, and that has been real big driving like force right now. You can listen to such shows as Players Club, Keeping It 100, and Weekend News by going to Anchor and searching for Players Club podcast.
Yep, and it's on iTunes and Spotify, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yep, all your podcast places. And you can catch me on this feed. We should be coming out this week. The Comic Guys, we watched Blade Trinity, and you could watch with us. We also talked about at the beginning of the episode Captain Britain MI-13, finishing that up. And I forgot how bad of a movie Blade Trinity is. That's all I can say. And check out all the other shows. Leave 5 stars everywhere. Here with us at the Players Club. Tell a friend.